first and foremost, I want to, where's Teresa at? Teresa Sykes, thank you so much. Thank you. So I'm going to just have a couple of announcements. First, Mr. Mark Lundquist, the board rep for Supervisor Ramos is here. You have your fire chief, Mark Hartwig, your Deputy Chief of Administration, John Chamberlain, and your former fire chief here. And then you have Tom Marshall, who's your Assistant Chief and in charge of this division. So thank you. So there's a couple things. First of all, if you don't know where the restroom is, it's straight back there behind, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot our county fire marshal. My pardon. How dare I do that?
Easy to forget.
No, it's not. Trust me. So, I apologize, Mike. So there's a couple things. The restrooms are straight to the back, and of course the exits are to my left and to the right, should there be a need for that. Hopefully there will not. So let's just move right along. So basically, when you guys came in, we gave you all cards, your public question cards. The reason why we did that is because we're going to try to keep the meeting going, and we want to try to answer as many questions as we can. We will be here for quite a while, and then we do have another meeting in Yucca Valley. You most certainly are welcome to join us. It's at 6:30. However, even if some of us have to leave to get to that other meeting, your other chiefs will stay and be able to answer any other questions you have. Hopefully we can answer the majority of your questions through the PowerPoint presentation and on the cards. Also, if you need more cards or you have a card filled out, just raise your hand and Captain Steve Tracy or Captain Kyle Hodekor will come and get them. Thank you. So we realize, like I said, your time is precious, so we're going to keep moving it along. Chief Hartwig will give his presentation, and we're going to go right into questions. So without further ado, Chief Hartwig.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today and kind of braving the heat and the elements in the middle of the day. As Tracy said, this is one of many road shows that we're going to have throughout the county. We come to you, I come to you today as your fire chief. I went to my fire board in June, and you're going to see the timeline here because I feel like we're at a crossroads in the fire district. We're currently at a position financially in which we will have to look at service cuts throughout the district or find revenue. And we have proposed FP5 expansion countywide in the district to do the latter, which is essentially to raise revenue so that we don't have to, next budget year, talk about service cuts throughout the district. This is about 10 slides. We're going to get through it quickly and make your questions or notes as you go through, and we're going to spend as much time as we possibly can to address your concerns. FP5, first let me tell you a little about the County Fire District. We were formed as the County Fire District. Some of you will remember that in 2008. We were a collection of 43 separate board-governed fire districts that were formed into one fire district with 4 geographic service zones and a collection of 10 separate fire protection and paramedic service zones throughout the county. And the district is legally separate from the County Board of Supervisors. And so you'll hear us talk about the county. When we talk about the county and the County of San Bernardino, that is a separate legal entity than the County Fire District. This is our current district boundary. There's a better map over here if you had a chance to look at it. We serve 19,000 square miles. It's the largest fire district in the country. And we serve about half the population of the county. So out of about 2.4 million people that reside in the County Fire District is responsible to provide service to about 1.2 million of that population. If it's gray or red on the map, it is part of the County Fire District. The red simply means that they're part of an existing fire protection service zone or a paramedic service zone. And here, as you see here, you have FP5 in the community of 29 Palms, just recently joined FP5, and then you have FP4, of course you're familiar with, that's Wonder Valley's fire protection zone, and then of course they're throughout the county, including these 2 smaller ones up here in Red Mountain and Windy, what we refer to as Windy Acres, which is the county portion of Ridgecrest, the San Bernardino County portion of Ridgecrest. This is the South Desert Service Zone boundary. So the boundary is the gray, and those are the fire protection service zones that currently exist within the South Desert. This is FP5 Needles, FP5 29 Palms, and of course you have the Havasu Landing service zone out here, FP6, and then you have FP4 here, of course, in Wonder Valley. The fire district funding. We have a lot of sources of funding, but the primary sources of funding for the fire district are property taxes and contract revenue. We receive property taxes for those that are part of the district. They're structurally part of the district. We also have contracts currently with the city of Fontana. We have a contract with the city of Adelano. We have a contract with the city of Hesperia and a contract with the city of Victorville. Victorville is going through a process to detach from the county fire district. Hesperia is going through a process to annex into the county fire district. So we expect those two contracts, 2 of the 4 contracts, to go away this budget year. And then there's 2 contracts. The city of Fontana just re-upped on a 20-year agreement, and the city of Adelano just signed a 10-year agreement with the county fire district for services. We also have revenue that come in from the service zones, the 10 separate service zones that I just mentioned and showed you. And then we have essentially a contract with the county of San Bernardino for services. They call them service enhancements, the county of San Bernardino, but those service enhancements, which are listed on the MOU or the contract with the county, are really to provide basic services in the communities that we're discussing today, and specifically here in Wonder Valley. What are the benefits of FP5? Very simply, in my mind, it's going to allow us to remain sustainable. We today, and I'm going to show you some slides on our budget, we today are not sustainable. We are not addressing our capital improvement and replacement needs. We're not addressing simple operational costs to include vehicle replacement and staffing in some of the communities throughout the county. We establish again a capital replacement fund that we don't have today. When we talk about the need to build a station in Wonder Valley or to spend money to improve the water system in this case, we don't have the funds to do that. I don't have a fund that I can go to in the district and say, well, we'll draw it from there. We hope to, through FP5 and the revenue generated through FP5, to have that capability. We, to establish district reserves. Over the last 7 years, and I've been here now as a fire chief for 7 years, we were as high as $43 million in unrestricted reserves. This year, as our money is budgeted and our reserve funds are budgeted, our fund balance is budgeted, we expect to be less than, and if everything is spent as programmed in this year's budget, we'll have less than $1 million in each of the 4 service zones in unrestricted reserves. So that means over the last 4 budget years, I've gone from a $43 million unrestricted reserve, money that I could dip into for capital replacement or other needs, to would be less than $4 million this year, and that's some of the urgency I come to you with today. It also establishes a consistent tax rate. We talked about the tax rates, these FPs and PMs throughout the county. They vary widely, from $9 in El Mirage all the way up to the Red Mountain, and I'll find out exactly what that is, but it's north of $150 per parcel. And then, of course, it would allow the county, as they determine whether or not that they have the general fund revenue, to enter into that MOU with me next year. The agreement that I had, I talked to you about an agreement with the city of Fontana for 20 years and Adelano for 10 years. My agreement with the county goes year to year. So I count on revenue from the county year to year. I hope that next year they have enough revenue in their general fund so that they can enter into an MOU with me so that I can maintain my service levels throughout the county. This is as best I can, breaking down as simply as I can the issue at hand. We have an MOU with the county I just told you about, $17.4 million in service enhancements. That means that they say, Mark, we know that the community of whatever it might be, Wonder Valley, relies on $1.1 million to staff the squad that serves Wonder Valley. We know that they bring in something less than that through their property taxes and their current fire protection service zone FP4. We want to pay you in order to provide that service. But that's not just here, that's communities. That's why we have 26 meetings or 28 meetings throughout the county over the next 2 months. That's throughout the county. That's the tri-communities in the North Desert. That's the community, the valley community of Mentone. That's the mountain community of Fawnskin. They get a fire station with a fire engine 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And to sustain that, they give us $17.4 million. I wish I could do it on $17.4 million, but this year, remember when I told you I went from $43 million down to what would be $4 million this year? I'm going to use $12 million, almost $12 million this year out of my fund balance or reserves, unrestricted reserves, to run the department. That's the urgency I come to you with today. We could wait till next budget year, and I've talked to our fire board over the last 2 years about the need for revenue. And today I get general fund revenue through a contract. It doesn't come to me without strings attached, but I do get general fund revenue to run the organization. But I don't have, I told you I only have $4 million left. I don't have that next year. I have $12 million I'm spending. I have a total deficit, if you add those two up, of $29.3 million. The special assessment, the FP5 that we're talking about, the special assessment it generates $26.9 million. So going into next budget year, with the same budget that we had this year, and I project that we'll have about a $3 million increase next year, I'll show you on the next slide, we are already short. I'm going to have to go back to the county and say, I need an MOU to continue providing services of at least $2.4 million so that I can continue providing that service. This figure right here is the reason I'm here in this community today, is because I don't have 12 million. If I wanted to take district reserves and continue to fund service, I don't have the ability to do that without another source of revenue. So we would have to cut services. If I can't fund the services, the only other option is to cut services. This is the projected shortfall. The only difference on this shortfall from the slide before is that I project that we would need another $3 million for some vehicle and asset replacement, equipment replacement needs. At $32.3 million, without an MOU from the county, and not that they wouldn't be willing to do it, they've been willing to do it for the 7 years I've been here, but it's very clear to me that there's no guarantee of that revenue. That revenue comes as long as the general fund has the ability to provide it. And there's a political will, of course, depending on who's on my fire board or the Board of Supervisors. And I glossed over that, but our Board of Supervisors, even though they're a separate legal entity, we are a board-governed fire district. The Board of Supervisors acts as my fire board, but they are the Board of Supervisors. And then if you look at $2.2 million, that's the average cost to run a station, basically to staff and keep the lights on, run the utilities for a fire station. That's 3 people. That's a one fire engine, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is about $2.2 million. To make up $32 million, you can figure out how many stations I would have to go back into in the county to make that up. That's the urgency I come to you with today. We have a pretty sophisticated computer dispatch or a computer program, staffing program, modeling, staffing modeling, that we can pick up a station at any given community and it will calculate the new response times without that station. It even takes into account how many times that station is out on another call. So it's sophisticated enough for us to know that if we were to just pick up a station out of the Valley Division, for instance, that depending on what station we picked up and removed, it could be up to 13 minutes in the year's response times. Out here in the South Desert, if we were to pick up the station out of Joshua Tree, or we were to pick up the station off of the Mesa, it would be up to an additional 10-minute in response times. My intention in showing you this is to show you that there is an impact when we reduce staffing throughout the county. This is the process and timeline for FP5. June 12th, as you know, we presented the fire board, the fire chief. I presented the fire board at our budget meeting a resolution or the option of joining or expanding through Fire District Law, FP5, County Fire District wide. They adopted the resolution to do that at that meeting. The notices will be mailed on September 14th. The notices look like this. They'll go to every landowner. They'll go to every person on title within the county. So if there's 4 people on title, 4 people will get this notice. And it'll have FP5 expansion. It will have the fire district return address, and it will have your APN number on the envelope. This is almost exactly what the notice will look like. Those will be mailed out on September 14th. It will also describe how to participate in the protest process. And I want to talk about that in just a little bit. We're holding community meetings, started last night in Grand Terrace. We've got 2 today and 2 tomorrow. And we expect those to go on over pretty consistently over the next 2 months. October 16th is the date that is scheduled for the protest hearing. At that protest hearing, we've hired a contractor to collect the protests and to tabulate the protests so that the Board of Supervisors will have some objective tool to measure support or opposition to our intent to expand FP5, the service zone fire district wide. They will also have the opportunity at that time to adopt the resolution to make that, to actually make that happen and to have that take place. The Board of Supervisors through Fire District Law, the Fire Board through Fire District Law, are not required to do a protest process. They're required to notice the landowners, and they're required to conduct a public hearing. And yet we felt as the fire district it wasn't fair for the board to not have some kind of objective tool to use to measure support or opposition countywide. That's why we suggested that they adopt a protest process. If the protest process looks familiar, the protest process is exactly the same model that LAFCO uses, except for LAFCO uses registered voters and we're using property owners. This will be a property tax assessment. This will be a service zone expansion that will affect property owners, and so we've chosen to use property owners as the audience. If you go to your smartphone now or your device and you go to sbcfire.org, you'll see at the bottom of this, of our page, a service zone FP5 information page. This is our attempt to make sure we can give you as much information as we possibly can on what that means to you. This is, we have fact sheets, we have the resolution that the board adopted, and we have other information. We also have a tab on there, so if you have a question that doesn't seem to be answered here, and we have a team, probably should let you know that the folks that you see in the room from the County Fire District are part of the team that is essentially helping me present this to you countywide. And I'm only able to share this information to you through their hard work. You probably have to know, only because we addressed it last night, that these are other duties as assigned. So I don't pay them overtime for being here. I'm sure they'll have to get the regular job done tonight when they get done with this meeting. But we do think it's important for us to have every last bit of information that you need as you deliberate whether or not you can support FP5 expansion. And more than anything, to make sure that you understand what that means to you and to the fire district. That is all I have. I expect that we'll spend quite a bit more time here talking about the concerns and questions you have, but that is my presentation.
Thank you, Chief. So what I'm going to do is, if I can have Chief Chamberlain and Chief Marshall please come up. Being that most of you, or the majority of you, turned in these cards before the presentation, if you don't mind, I'll say your name and you could just say yes or no if you still need me to read your card or your comment, because your question may have already been answered. I want to get to as many of these as I possibly can.
I didn't fill the card out, but can I just ask a quick question real quick? Why don't you guys put a 1% service fee on every gallon of gasoline sold, and then that way it's not a tax, it doesn't have to be voted on, and it can easily be implemented and fund all this.
We'll take that idea down.
I mean, that's simple. With all the millions of gallons of gas that are sold in San Bernardino County, nobody's going to notice 3 cents a gallon to fund the fire department. And the fact that you guys are doing out all the way to 40 on Amboy Road, it seems simple to me. A lot of your calls
Sir,
at
we'll
this stage.
definitely think about that. Mary Lindsley, yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. If passed, will Wonder Valley Fire Department be reopened?
Well, currently, just so everybody's clear, the reason that the staff is not here is because of the water. We've done 2 independent tests on the water. We had above the maximum consumable levels on a few of those areas. We're going to have that independently tested again, and that's on the recommendation of the Department of Health. Once that's addressed, then we'll have to go from there.
We're going to go through the cards, and then anyone else that has any questions, I'll be happy to take them. So, Ed Bellerin? Yes? Okay. All right. Is it Morongo Basin Ambulance the primary provider of EMS in the Morongo Basin, West Yucca Valley?
No, actually, Morongo Basin Ambulance is the EOA holder, which means that they have the legal responsibility to provide ambulance transport in the EOA concerning Morongo Basin. Morongo Basin Ambulance is required by law to transport within that. There's no requirement to provide EMS. The requirement for the EOA is to provide transport. Your fire department that serves the Morongo Valley and the county fire department, but before that, other departments in the Morongo Valley have chosen to cross-train their firefighters with a higher level of training to paramedic and EMT. That way, when the ambulance is available or not available, whether it's a county ambulance or a Morongo Basin ambulance anywhere in the Morongo Basin, you have the care that you need before transport gets there. But the requirement to provide EMS is a jurisdictional requirement, and the responsibility, in fact, the responsibility to provide transport through a legal obligation of the exclusive operating area is Morongo Basin in areas outside the town of Yucca Valley in which the town of Yucca Valley provides that transport.
Can we get a representative of Morongo Basin Ambulance here? I had spoke with them earlier, and they got a different opinion. Their opinion was that they were the primary to provide the EMS service on site. They did not get paid unless they actually transported. And what I'm hearing from you is different than what I heard from them. So I'm confused at the moment.
No, so,
I'm going to have to go with
so,
some database.
so Ed, what you need to know from us is we have the legal responsibility within the district, the fire district, every last bit of that map that you saw to provide service, including EMS service. The fact that they would provide EMS service without transport, that's between you and Morongo Basin. But the responsibility to provide transport, the legal responsibility to provide transport through the exclusive operating area granted to the county is Morongo Basin. That they provide EMS without transport, that would be a conversation between you and MBA. And by the way, the relationship we have with MBA, we help each other out. We have 3 ambulances in Yucca Valley. They have another set of ambulances up here. So fortunately, us working with MBA and helping each other out is great for everybody. So I don't know if we need to get into a huge discussion about who does what. We just need to know that there's a lot of medical personnel up here, and that when you need it, you're going to get it.
Folks, we're going to go to the next question. Before I go on, we do have water in the back for those that would like a water, and there's some other drinks. I know it's getting pretty hot in here. So Bob Witt, Mr. Bob Witt? Yes, no? Yes, you want to read your card? Okay. Do you get more than one vote if you own more than one parcel? Second part of that is if not, can a resident vote for that?
So you do get one vote per registered owner per parcel. So there's multiple people that are reported on the deed. Those people all get a set vote. I'm sorry.
My question was, if you own 6 parcels, 10 parcels,
You get however many,
vote for each parcel?
correct, you get to vote per parcel, correct.
Walter Ruff? Yes?
Maybe just real fast on the parcel thing. If I could, just real fast on the parcel thing. there's been questions about people that own multiple parcels that are contiguous. You can go through the assessor, we'll make sure we have the information on our webpage. You can go through the assessor and combine those parcels so that you only pay one, not for planning purposes or development purposes, but just for this purpose. You can combine those, and then you're only going to pay one parcel taxes. And the only caveat to that is they have to be contiguous.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
It's a $108 fee to do that.
Yes, it's $108.
Yes, sir.
And it is in your fact sheet, the form number, everything is in your fact sheet, and it is on our website. So Walter Ruthie said yes,
Yeah,
right?
do we just answer questions?
Sure.
Okay.
Have all grants and other funding needs been exhausted? And number two, can 29 Palms reach fires in Wonder Valley in time to be effective?
So what I wanted to say, and just to clear
Sure.
that up, you know, I mean, I read the newspapers that the state of California has a $6 billion surplus. I'm wondering why we don't have some trickle down. And I know there are, to get new equipment, the federal government, you can apply for grants. Have they been exhausted? And then my other question, because I read that the Marine fire chief has said that they can't reach anything east of where we're sitting in enough time, I'm wondering why I have to pay if you can't reach my place anyway.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is, if you look back over the 7 years that I've been here, we average about one engine on a grant per year. So we apply for grants often, or equipment, I should say, because
Right.
sometimes it's not a fire engine. So
Right.
we apply for those all the time, and we take advantage of them where we can get them. But I don't, but as far as me looking at a long-range plan, I don't count on them. And so it's great when we can get them, and then we use them. We actually do get
I
equipment off
understand
of
that.
them.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then as far as reaching, I can only tell you this, the farther apart we are, the harder it is to reach them. So it takes longer to get there. I will tell you, we work closely with 29 Palms Fire, so that when they need help on the base, we use some of our resources onto the base. When we need help off the base, to the extent that they can, they come off of the base. That's called mutual aid. We are, for the most part, except for Morongo Valley Fire, we are for the most part a regional provider. So not only are we not restricted by boundary, we're moving things in and out of the service zone, from the North Desert Service Zone or even the Valley Service Zone when we have to. Because occasionally you get incidents, like the pirate incident up off the river. They overwhelm the number of resources that are available anywhere, including the Arizona and Nevada side. So we'll bring things out of the valley. Does it take a while? I would tell you sometimes it takes longer than you want it to take. Will we get there and will we mitigate the incident, whatever it is, we will absolutely do that.
So that really didn't answer my question.
Okay.
My question was, because of what I've read that the fire chief in 29 said, just a simple yes or no. Can you get to my place, and I'm only 5 minutes away. Can you get if my house starts burning and I call 911, can you get there and put the fire out?
You will get a response from 29 Palms Station downtown,
Okay.
or the base, depending on what's available. That's what you will get. So
That didn't answer my question either.
The answer is no. So Deanne Albers asked, with this tax, will we have full fire coverage with permanent staff that will be familiar with this area?
What we're able to do today is we're able to staff a squad that is currently serving Wonder Valley, as you know, from the station in 29 Palms. As you know, just a second, please.
That's my question.
That's what we have today. Today, without any additional revenue, I don't know that I can continue to provide that service. That's what I'm telling you today. What I'm coming to you today and telling you is I have a $12 million shortfall next year with the county providing the MOU. I don't know that the county is going to continue the MOU until next budget year. And I could, with reasonable assurance, tell you, the communities that I serve, I could, with reasonable assurance, tell you that I could do that, as long as I had reserve funds to do it. And I don't have those reserve funds next year. Next year, and we're still a full budget cycle away, we just passed this last year's budget, we're only the first month into it, but I'm telling you now, I will have to make the decision to cut services if I don't have that service. That's what I'm telling you. So, yes, today we have the squad, and it serves here, and I know it's not serving here from where you want it to serve you. I get that. But today, we can continue to serve you with that squad or the fire engine out of 29 Palms, as long as we have funding, and I don't know about that next year without a revenue mechanism such as MP5.
So what I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is, a lot of you are asking the same questions, like, will the station reopen? So you've gotten your answer. It's unknown at this time. I'm going to read all the other questions.
Could I do a follow-up question?
Yes, ma'am.
To that? Aside from the water issue, assume the water issue is taken care of, assume the tax is passed, will we have a fire station here with permanent staff?
Our full intent is to move the staffing from where it is today, keep it staffed. In fact, that is Wonder Valley staffing, and move it back to Wonder Valley if we have a mechanism to do that. I will tell you today, not only do I not have a mechanism to do that, even if I found out it was $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million to build a new station or $5 million, I don't know. I don't have the revenue to do that. So we know we need help there. My guess is that we're not going to be shocked by the next water. We'll get an independent water study that comes back. I don't imagine things change. I know they don't want to continue work or commit to a path forward without knowing that it's still a problem. I get that from environmental health. But at the end of the day, I don't expect that to change. I expect us to have to do some significant work in order to treat the water so that people can.
Well, we'll get to that. I'm going to go to the next question.
That aside, if we
Yes.
start paying the increased tax, will this fire station be open?
Yes, that is our plan. I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know what, if they come back and say it's more money than it's worth to build it, that's what I can't tell you that. I can tell you my recommendation as a fire chief is
Sir,
to
we're going
move
to
that
keep going
resource
with these
back.
cards, because everyone has questions, and if they keep shouting them out, we won't get through them all. Sir, I'll be right with you. So Gary Tuffix asked, what benefits will this rate increase bring us?
We talked about it. It keeps the lights. It keeps that squad staff. And I can't come to you and say that it won't be. If this fails, I can't come to you and say it's going away. I can only come to you and say I'm going to go back to the county next year, and I'm going to say instead of me asking for 17.4 million, I have to ask you for 29.4 million, or whatever else on top of that. We said it might be as much as 32 million. So I'm at the mercy of somebody other than my own reserve fund and the county MOU to keep the staffing here, which is the squad out of the 29 Palm Station, unless I can get revenue. With this revenue, I can now go back to my board and say, I'm not reliant on you and I'm not reliant on my reserve. That's as simple as I can put it. That's the benefit. When I told you about the benefit, it allows me to build up a capital reserve program. So I don't need to go to the county and say, hey, I have some major repairs that need to be done to a station. Do you have money? Today, that's my plan, to repair and replace stations. And I shouldn't have to do that. I'm a separate legal entity. I should have that method available to me. But without another source of revenue, I will not be able to do that.
So, Mr. Ed Verland, you wanted me to go ahead and read the statement. Page number 5, Prop 218, voter right, not in.
Just reiterate.
It's just reiterating 25% force code or 50% kill set.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what you
the
said.
voters have no say, which is the difference between left. And so what you said is, it's going to be the assessed value. There's another tab further back on the assessed value. I've done some property I owned for 50 years, which is it true? Are they going to go by the assessment value or are they going to say that that's a duplex and it's worth X dollars or what?
Yeah, it's a parcel tax, and so yeah, you'll get a vote as a parcel owner.
Yeah, but you said it's a weighted value of the property. Like where I used to work, there's a place that cost, the electronics cost $500 million. It was all one partial.
Yeah, so it's
So,
25%.
you know, the poor guys, us that are retired, are supplementing places like that. We'll be supplementing San Bernardino.
I'll give you the skinny on that as best I know it. The requirement is, on the resolution that was passed, adopted by the fire board, is it's 25% of the property owners and 25% of the value. But let me be very clear with you on something. If I go back to the LAFCO actions, and this is not a LAFCO action, this is done, the expansion is done pursuant to fire district law. It's 13,800 of the Health and Safety Code. You'll find it under fire district law. The action that we're taking is under fire district law. It's not under LAFCO. In fact, in the fire district law, it makes it very clear that it's not a LAFCO process. However, when we looked at a protest process, we wanted to look to a protest process that's actually been done somewhere. They use registered voters as well. We use property owners and value. But what we don't want to do is if we don't have to calculate value, we want to make sure we get the owners first, and then if we have to calculate value, we will. But it is indeed 25% of the owners and the property value.
Can I elaborate on
The
this?
assessed value.
That's correct.
Right, so the Prop 13,
Could you turn
will
it
save the
pardon?
taxes, will hurt you.
Oh, yes. Okay. So Mr. Kemp had a question, it's more info pertaining to the protest. Do you want to say
I'd
something?
like to yeah, first of all, I want to commend you guys for the services you guys provide, you and law enforcement, because I mean, you guys put your lives on the line, and there's only a handful of jobs that do that. I understand you guys are having physical challenges, you know, and I understand the need for a equipped fire department, but when it comes to Wonder Valley, I mean, I understand the need when it's a congested neighborhood and there's houses next to each other, you know, and one person's house fire puts in everyone else's house in jeopardy. You know? Out here in Wonder Valley, we have 5-acre parcels. If mine burns down, it's not going to affect my neighbors. And from history, what I've seen is that most of the houses that you guys actually get to and to put out, the people aren't able to live in them anyway. So they basically burn to the ground. And I'm not trying to, you know, talk down on your services because you guys do a great job, but I don't think it's an unnecessary tax for us Wonder Valley residents, and it shouldn't be put on to us. And I'd like to add on to that. You said on the protest process, 25% creates whatever. Well, I know a lot of that land on that map is government owned, which you said was exempt. But a lot of those parcels that people own, they don't have addresses, so they're unable to receive letters.
Yeah, well, we use the tax assessor, so when the tax assessor sends a property tax bill for that assessor's parcel number, there is contact information.
Oh, okay, good.
It goes to the register.
Okay.
So we're actually working directly with the assessor's
Okay.
office.
So did we answer your question fully on the protest? It's in the fact sheet too. And if you have any other questions, or if you're not understanding it, one of the guys in back of the bag can answer it.
Just to put in perspective, the amount of people that the total parcel count exceeds 197,000 parcels total in this effort, and we're going to be noticing around 380,000 people. That's what's going out in mailers, to put it in perspective for everybody. So when you talk about specifically not having a property address listed, our staff on the assessor specifically detail all that out.
Okay, thank you.
Larry Wilcoxon says, or asks, is it possible that we could get the name of the firefighter who complained about the water quality? The answer is no. I'm just going to answer that one. Hold on a minute. The second question is the $157 increase going to improve the water quality enough to open the station, which I think we already answered that. And this being an economically depressed area, why would we not?
Sorry, what does water quality come into play when putting out a fire though? I mean, is that
It
the water
doesn't. It
quality
comes
at
into
the
play
station?
whether we can safely have our fire crews here or not.
Most of the people out here are haul water. People don't drink water from wells out here. Most of the people, why don't? But my point is that for the fire station, why couldn't they just have water brought in? Yeah. For the drink? I don't get it.
The anti-arsenic filter is about $2,000 for the best.
So I'll address it.
About that, I'm talking
Okay,
about.
let's
water
give
from
Chief
Stater
Marshall an
Brook.
opportunity to address it.
I'll address it.
Chief Marshall.
I'll address it. We have employees, not just one, employees that reported an exposure. Right? So they went through the risk management process and said, I was exposed to this something. They went to the thing with some skin irritations. That doctor said, it looks like you have been exposed to something. We started with the water testing. Water testing came back, we had bad readings.
What we,
It was not just cyanide, it was many different things.
Arsenic.
It was a lot.
Arsenic, chromium, chromium-3, chromium-6, all those things were in there. So that's where we're at, okay? I'm not just saying it, I have the reports, so.
Skin irritation.
the same, I'm sorry, I'm going to continue on. Mr. Leroy, go.
That's me.
Okay, I'm going to continue on with your question, sir. Okay, this being an economically depressed area, why would we not think this is a county or BLM or corporate land grab? Why do we have to pay for county fire's inability to manage their budget? I'm sorry, I can barely hear you.
You're talking about how many millions of dollars to staff, 3 men, 24 hours a day. These guys ain't making that much money for it to cost $3 million. You've already got a building there. You're talking about building a building. It's already there. You need to clean up the water and you can put people in there for a lot less than you're talking about. I don't know how much you got, but it ain't $12 million.
As far as, let me just say a little bit about the budgeting process, and I can understand you could disagree with the budgeting process and how much it costs, but we go through an exhaustive budget process. It goes through the county CEO account, goes through the county finance office, and then the process is approved. So I can understand your frustration with the amount it costs. I can't control how much it costs. I can only say that the money you give me out of your property taxes or my other sources of revenue, we use it as best we can. In fact, we're using more money than we have right now. We're draining our reserves to essentially provide that service. You can always, it's a public record, you're a member of the public, our budgets are open. The budget process is actually attended by a lot of members of the community throughout the, we have a budget hearing every year in front of our fire board and the county board of supervisors. Your elected officials make sure, in fact, it's their job to make sure I'm doing my budget appropriately. They hire finance staff, so the answer is absolutely.
Okay, so Mr. Bob Ward made a statement, so I will read it. If we do not have our fire station, how much more can you take? Ellen asked, if we have no fire station, and last week we had a house burned down, are we going to receive a fire services with this tax? If not, this is a taxation with then no service, no representation. I don't think there's really a question there. I think it was just a statement. Ellen, right? Okay. Leela Pendergrass asked, what is the complete fire department budget? What is the shortfall as a percentage of the total budget, which I think you kind of answered.
Yeah, and that's, our budget documents, I believe, are actually on the county website. Our approved budget is on the county website and our fire district website. This year, countywide, it was approved at about $275 million. That includes capital requests and improvement requests. About 275 and change.
Is there an itemized like expense list? Because I mean, I know when I go to the hospital, they charge you like $500 for a Fiesta. You know what I mean? To be frank, you know. There's got to be. I mean, I don't know who creates the prices, but there's got to be a way to, be a little more economical.
We do our best. We are bound to public contracting code, so we do pay prevailing wage. We put everything we buy out for bid. And so we get multiple bids, and we typically pick the lowest bid. Sometimes they don't have a product that we believe is compatible. Very rarely, most of the time it's lowest bid. So I can tell you that sometimes I think we pay too much for something, but if you go out and look on the market, it's just, it's very expensive.
Tristan Gerlin asked, what revenue is annually covered from West Valley for fire, or Wonder Valley for fire station?
Knows that it's...
This is what revenue is annually collected from Wonder Valley for
So
fire
your
station.
current FP last year collected $176,000.
FP4. And then your assessed value, we looked at the assessed value, the ad valorem So we get a portion of your property taxes, and then we get the FP5, or get the FP4 portion currently. That, I think the property, do you remember what the AV is on that, John?
3 cents.
Yes, 3 cents. So to put it into perspective, Yucca Valley pays 22% of their, and I know for you, it's a dollar, right? So it doesn't really matter how it's split up, but just to put it into perspective, Yucca Valley pays 22% of their property tax dollar. That 1%, if you take your assessed value, 1% of it is what you pay in your property taxes. That 1% is split up between a lot of people. You probably see it on your property tax bill. The fire district, actually in Yucca Valley, gets 22% of that tax dollar, essentially. Some goes to other special districts, some goes to the city. In this case, a part of it goes to the county. In Wonder Valley, the fire district gets 3%. So, and why that is different here than it is somewhere else, Joshua Tree, in contrast, is 8% of the property tax dollar. So it's different. Those percentages were locked in at Prop 13, and and they haven't changed. The money changes, obviously, as values change, but that percentage was locked in when Prop 13 was passed in 1973.
So Jenny Lynn Laughlin asks, has CAL FIRE presented a budget to the county and plenty of federal land visitors to the area too? Has the feds put in a bid? You mean to take over services? Where's Jenny Lynn? Yeah. Yes, ma'am, is that what you're asking? Yes, ma'am. So she's asking if, sorry, he's looking up some figures, we will answer your question. So they're asking if CAL FIRE has presented a budget to the county?
Yeah, so let me just answer that, because I have some detailed numbers from our finance staff. So that 3% comes to $192,000. So we get $192,000 as your property tax portion, is essentially the ad valorem tax that we get, and then $158,000 comes from the FP4 that we get. And then as far as no, unless the county fire board wanted to look at other options for fire services, they have a fire provider, rescue and EMS provider, and that's the county fire district. So currently, the community of Wonder Valley, along with many other communities out here in the South Desert, are part of the county fire district, structurally part of the fire district. It's not a contract. You are literally, we collect property taxes at 3%. As your provider. So that isn't a contract, and the contract isn't up for bid at any given time. However, you can go through a LAFCO process, and you can remove fire powers, or you can join the fire district through the LAFCO process. People are doing that actually this year. Victorville is ending a contract with us, and the city of Hesperia is annexing into the district as well. And you've heard 29 Palms, as you know, Needles recently annexed into the district, got out of the fire business because they thought it was too expensive or more expensive into the future.
Point word, if they have the option, if CAL FIRE has the option in order to put a bid in, and you and the board of supervisors are the same, how is that not a conflict of interest?
So they don't have an option. Is that what you said? CAL FIRE does not have an option, but it's not up for contract. It's not up for bid.
Yet, right?
What's that?
Nobody's asked them to put bid in, or?
No, it's not contracted. The service is not contracted. The services are provided by the owner of the responsibility. And so until that owner of the responsibility didn't want to do it, or didn't think they could do it, or thought there was a better way to do it, they wouldn't put it out for contract. And in fact, in order to put it out for contract today, you would have to go through a LAFCO process to detach yourself from the county fire district. That's all I'm saying.
And we would talk about the second part of the question, excuse me, but to go to the second part of the question then, because we're surrounded by federal land, BLM, the national park monuments, all of that, where are they kicking in their services in order to take care of their 3 million visitors every year that are going up and down our roads, staying in our Airbnbs, our ecotourism, et cetera?
That's been a concern. That's been a concern we've had for as long as I've been part of the fire district. I started in 1992, and us trying to get money from the federal government for the interstates we cover, from the national parks, the recreation areas. The state does kick up for fire rescue, or at least fire in this area. Occasionally, they have an engine over here out of Yucca Valley to tend to the state responsibility areas, the overlay that they have essentially on top of the fire district. And then, of course, as you probably know, the National Park Service also has some fire capability up in Joshua Tree. Other than that, and I know your Congressperson, Paul Cook, and before that was Jerry Lewis, seemed like they screamed until no end to get some federal funding here. Most of it has just come through grants. And so they might come to me and say, Mark, we can't get any ongoing funding out of the federal general fund, but can we get you a fire engine? Or can we help you buy your next defibrillator or your cardiac monitor, which are very expensive?
Have you applied for federal funding to put a fire station at the airport?
Yeah. I'm not sure what airport you're, that's
County Airport. Seems like that because it's an airport, that the federal government would kick in some kind of grants or some kind of stipulation, because the Marines use it as an auxiliary airport, like a couple months back where the helicopter landed and then changed transmission. Seems like the fire department should apply for funding to put airplanes crash, you guys got to roll out, might as well put the fire station right there. But the federal government give you a grant to put a temporary buildings and a shade cover over, it's not that much money, and put fire department personnel there that would also serve Wonder Valley, but paid for primarily for the aircraft landing and taking off the airport.
I think it's a great idea. I'm not aware of any such program. I do know we provide aircraft services, rescue, firefighting services right now to SBIA, just until very recently up at the Southern California Logistics Airport, and that was all a responsibility. I know Ontario
The
provides
federal
it.
government will lease you any piece of aircraft.
We'll look into that, sir. I'm going to keep going on the questions.
I'm actually going to help with that one. The 29 Palms Airport is the responsibility of the County of San Bernardino. It is not an FAA regulated airport, and because of that, it wouldn't fall under any type of federal
Maybe we
funding.
need to get it to be an FAA regulated airport so that the county can put a fire station in there.
It may be more than we could ever be able to establish out here, and a lot of that funding is based on number of aircraft that land.
It seems to me that there's many different types of funding we could use out here that's not, for instance, you could rent or lease a fire truck surplus from the federal government for $1. You could go get all the fire trucks you want for $1.
I'd be happy to discuss it with you offline. I think you were looking for more detail than we.
No, it's not detailed, it's common
Captain
knowledge.
Waterford, you can do that, I appreciate it.
I listened to this about the money, and I know that there's ways to get around it because of the equipment costs, to use surplus government equipment to do these things, where you're not putting out $150,000, $200,000, $300,000 for a piece of equipment because the military's brought it back from Iraq and it's sitting over in Barstow.
I can actually speak to some detail on that, but I probably don't find it.
We're gonna move into the one other question too. So Chief, can you tell us what's happened with the SRA state tax?
So there was an SRA fee that was applied over the SRA up until I don't know, it was about 10 years, I think. There was a...
Expand the acronyms, please. I don't.
State responsibility area, the state tax that you guys received? Well, that we all received, actually.
I don't know how much state responsibility area. So we talked about what the state and federal responsibility area is out here. There actually is land identified on a map that is called state responsibility area. And in that state responsibility area, that's why you see that CAL FIRE engine in Yucca Valley. They're there to take care of the state responsibility area. There was a fee that was applied to the areas that were covered or within the state responsibility area or the SRA, and that fee was for about 10 years. That was just recently repealed as part of the governor's budget. They removed the SRA fee from people who live within the SRA. And I don't know how many people, does anybody here pay the SRA fee?
I don't think any, we don't have that here.
Okay, so Mary Lindsley asked, if Wonder Valley turns down the $157, will the fire ambulance stop coming here when we call it 911?
Today, the ambulance comes from MDA. That's the responsibility of Morongo Basin. They're the holder of the exclusive operating area for this area. And in fact, 29 Palms as well. So if you ever see a county fire ambulance out here, it's only because MBA has called for mutual aid and said, hey, we need some help, can you help us out? And we say, yeah. Very similar to the way we would be in Yucca Valley and say, hey, we need some help, we have some help. So obviously, the county fire district funds 3 of its ambulances through our budget. I'm sure MBA has a budget that they fund their equipment through. And so to the extent that our budget is impacted, potentially the ambulance service for the areas we serve would be impacted.
Tristan Copeland asked, what would be the estimated cost to maintain a 2-man crew based out of 29 Palms and posted at the Wonder Valley Station to man a BLS ambulance and a quick attack?
Well, we're kind of doing that now. I think that's the staffing model you have now. You have that rescue squad that's out of 29 Palms that is assigned to the Wonder Valley.
But they're not posting in Wonder Valley. They're posted out of 29 Palms.
That's correct. Today, they're actually posting. In fact, their quarters are out of 29 Palms. Until we can get the living situation figured out, then that's where they'll be.
So I'm thinking along the lines of like AMR Riverside County. So they'll have ambulances based out of the station, I would say like Menifee. But they'll post in a remote location behind a Walgreens or something. So you have an ALS guy and a BLS guy and an ambulance that aren't posting at the station. You have guys posting here, but based at the separate station.
Yeah, they call that system status. So we've committed to our employees to have a station that has a bathroom and running water and kitchen facilities for their breaks. And so to the extent that they might come out here and check on something at the station and somebody's coming out and making sure that there wasn't a water leak and they're opening the doors and making sure that the lights still turn on. Other than that, we don't ask them to post in a location that is separate from, except for the details.
Okay, Karen Myers asked, what will happen if 25% of the people plus 25% of the property value protest? The same with what will happen if 50%? So basically, I think she wants to
That's the
clarification
protest.
on the protest.
That is the protest process as outlined on the website, but it's very similar to the LAFCO process that you might have heard about. 25% takes it to a vote, and then 50% or more actually kills it and there's no vote. And so that's the resolution or the protest process that was adopted by the county board of supervisors, who again act as our fire board.
And we'll clarify this one a little bit too. Oh, sorry.
I'm the one asked it.
Okay.
So what you're saying is the 25%, if the 25% protest and value, then it will go to a vote by everyone, by all property owners? Okay, and if it's 50%, it will be decided.
By resolution, it will go to a vote of the members of the district.
Okay.
The people that are part of the county fire district would then vote on it, and then it would be, essentially, that would be decided.
Okay, and if it doesn't get up to 25%, then it's
The way-
well, I know
yeah,
they have
right,
to
yeah.
decide, but we know it's going to.
Exactly. Well, the board would have to make the decision to adopt it based on the protest. But at the end of the day, my fire board always has the ability to, for whatever reason, adopt a separate resolution that says we either don't want to do it, and quite frankly, there's nothing that binds them to not do it if it's 24%. It was literally used as a measuring stick and objected to by the board of supervisors. But my guess is they're going to follow that process. I have no reason to believe they didn't follow that process.
Thank you. So, Mr. DeLand, I think we already answered this question. Do we use the assessor tax base or actual market? I think we answered that question. Mr. Mike, I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Gibson.
Thank you. What happened in the 4 years?
Basically, you've seen the reserves plummet from over 40 million to now under 4 million in the last few years. What changed that caused that?
We're just using reserves to provide services. That's as simple as I can put it. We
Basic
use the
services?
reserves to run the organization.
Just
Before-
basic, not
before that.
wildfires. This isn't like a
Some of them
wildfire.
are. It's if we use it as our E fund, we call an emergency fund, if you will. as well. So if there's a unbudgeted expense that's an emergency, and we get a few of those in the county, I think the recent fire we had up in Forest Falls, we didn't get any state or federal reimbursement from.
So that came out of your federal budget?
It was about $1 million.
Out of
that we-
reserves.
Yeah, about $1 million we used out of that out of reserves, just for the extra staffing, the equipment that we used for that incident. So that's a good point. We do use it as the emergency fund as well.
I'm going to go through here and ask, and state some of the questions that we haven't already addressed, and then we will stay afterwards, because like I said, we still do have to go to another meeting, but we will have people here to stay here and answer as many questions as we can. Bob Wood asked, does BLM land provide any money income? I think we already answered that.
They do provide some in-kind support. So there is a few units that are staffed seasonally here. I think Hole in the Wall is one of them. And so we will get some help from them when we ask for it, and vice versa, we get up to them.
The transfer solution to your well,
They just want to say,
is that what my question is? There's so much BLM land that's not being taxed. We are. So if that's the government's land, then they taking in to help out.
they're exempt. There's a payment called PILT, which is payment in lieu of taxes. The payment that they give us in lieu of taxes, because they're exempt, equals about 1 penny on the property tax dollars. So for what you get taxed $1 for, the federal government pays us about a penny for. So I don't want to tell you that we don't get any money. And that money doesn't come straight to the fire district. That money goes to the county of San Bernardino, and we have been recipients of some of that PILT money. But that PILT money, that payment in lieu of tax money, has to go for roads and whatever else they do, public health, whatever else they do, environmental, whatever else they do. And so we wrestle for that PILT, but there's such little of it that it doesn't even, that's why I say nothing, because it almost amounts to nothing.
Yeah, that's what our county keeps raising the taxes for, more roads that we don't get.
Well, we have to reserve our judgment on that one.
Did anybody ever offer the solution of, this bottled water I'm drinking right now is purified by reverse osmosis. I have a reverse osmosis system in my home, cost me about $200, and the water comes out excellent. You can get whole house systems for a couple $1,000s. Did anyone ever think of doing that for the department?
Yeah, we actually use one of the county departments to help us with that. So there's the Public Works Department that deals with that, and so as we look at what the issues we're having and the chemicals we have, we don't want to be the experts. We're experts at fighting fire and doing rescue and EMS, so we said, who else in the county deals with this? And so we're actually working with them to figure out what system can we put in place, and as inexpensively as we can, but as reliably as we can, so that if we put people there, we can be assured that they're not.
It makes it kind of hard to believe that that's the reason is water, because it's a simple system. It purifies water 100%. Well water, tap water, whatever.
So I assure you, we're looking into every option we possibly can. We have regulations and rules that we have to go by as well. But we understand. Okay, so Alexa asks, as a public service, would you redo rules and restrictions on using water on property owner property to put out a fire on the property? It is a difficult and unusual area, and adapting will affect to use all water. So I believe you're asking, would we utilize the water on your property to put out a fire?
Well,
is that
what I'm
correct?
saying is if anybody who goes to work for a desert area knows that they're in a challenging situation.
Right.
It needs to be adapted. This is not downtown LA, this is not Orange County. People have wells, people have underground, people have above ground, people have storage, this and that. It is a common, I don't know if it's true, but it seems common knowledge that the fire department will not use any water on the property to put out your fire unless it is in a designated fire department container. To me, that's just unbelievable.
Is it the container?
We'll let Chief Marshal ask.
That is not the case.
Okay, but so do you have adapters then to be able to hook into anybody's underground tanks?
Well, we can't take it from underground because we would ruin your system. We would collapse your entire system and ruin your well. If you have above ground tanks that have storage, then we can use that
Well,
water.
I have a 2,000-gallon underground tank as well as a well. Why would you destroy it?
We would collapse it.
That's how, ma'am, honestly, the Blue Cup fire that was in DeVore, That's how we fought most of that fire, was utilizing people's water tanks.
Right, but it has to be above, I'm saying, why can't we make it so that it's all water tanks, not just above ground? If you say it's gonna collapse the system, then get a piece of machinery or a tool that will not collapse.
It's the actual tank that's the problem. We would pull a vacuum on that, and we would collapse the tank.
Well, then can you get a different vacuum that won't pull it out?
So Georgine Shelton asked what happened to the 43 million fund that had been reduced drastically in the past 4 years. I believe we just answered that. We were talking about our reserves. Georgine?
Right
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Did we answer your question?
No.
Okay.
So we're drawing on our reserves right now to run the organization. So we're running the organization in a way that you or I probably wouldn't run our own personal budget. We're living off a credit card. We do, it's one of those prepaid credit cards.
What happened 4 years ago that caused this slide? Because you said 4 years ago I was sitting on this amount, and now I got nothing. So what is it about the last 4 years that have created this?
I would say primarily it's the cost of doing business, it's the services that we provide throughout the county, and it's it's just a different reliance on the county general fund. So essentially, it was a decision made by essentially our finance direction at the county to use reserves to fund ongoing services. And that was at my request, because I don't know, in fact, I'll be more emphatic than that. If we had 2 stations out here in Wonder Valley, and we were arguing about whether or not we need 2, or we had 4 stations in Wrightwood, and we were wondering about, do we need 4 stations? We're talking about communities that either, in your case, has 1 2-person staff unit that isn't even in the community, but responding from a neighboring community here, or nothing. And as a fire chief, I said we can't cut services below 1 fire station with 1 fire engine 24 hours, 7 days a week. And that's the position we're in right now. And so there were decisions made in the past that said, we don't have the money. What should we do? And I argued, continue to argue, for service cuts not to be the option, to come up with the money. And I was allowed, through the budget process, to dip into my reserves to maintain that service.
So did that mean that services, the amount of services delivered suddenly went up in that 4-year period? Or you were you were living on credit cards for a lot longer than 4 years, and you could have dipped in earlier, but you did not because the county was defraying those additional costs?
I would say yes. I would say the county was defraying some of the costs.
So you've been running on empty for a while?
That's correct. And I can't run on empty anymore. So I guess I'm at the end of my gas tank, if we want to say running on empty. And I come to you with that message. Because without FP5, and it's possible that through the protest process, we don't get FP5. Without FP5, I'm going to have to get money somewhere, or my only option is to cut services.
We're going to take one more question, and then the meeting will be concluded, but there will be several of us to remain to answer the rest of your questions. Mr. Larry Labor asks, I would like a better answer on Station 45. In my opinion, many people would base their protest vote on Station 45 opening. Respectfully, San Bernardino County Fire has given the same answer since September 2017. In 2017, the recommended budget said Station 45 will be closing due to lack of funding. Then we got the 1.2 million. Answer station, I'm sorry.
And fire station closed.
Okay, closed due to water. The same water we had in 2016. Plus we had the asbestos, and that the truck boy is not big enough. Trying to be respectful, but I would like a real answer. Tom, can you answer this?
Yeah, so in 2016, we didn't have those, we didn't have those employees saying we had a problem. So as soon as we found that we had a problem, and we were forced to make a decision on that, we did. I think Chief Hartwood was very clear. His intent is to put people back here. If we can fix the problem, if we can fix that problem, his intent was to put people back there. And when he says it's his intent, guess whose else's intent it is? It's mine. I work for him.
So we'll do everything we can.
I think people are just frustrated because
you've had all this time to work on the problem, and it would be great if you said, well, we got a plan, we're just waiting for the county to give us the money, or we have as soon as we get this $157 a parcel, then boom, we're gonna proceed. I mean, it's been a while.
We have worked with Public Works to get options. And I think when Tom says now we need to go back and test the water, we're at a point now where we just need to make sure before we look at investing, and some of the options are up to $500,000. And so before even...
I'm sorry, but you still got the asbestos, and then John told us the truck bay is not big enough, so.
Yeah, there's other issues. So we wouldn't just do one, we would probably do a collection of them to make sure that it was habitable in every sense, and that would include asbestos removal, it would include enlargement of the apparatus bay, probably climatizing the bay. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I can tell you now, the county isn't interested in looking at more options unless we know immediately whether or not the problem still exists. I'm guessing we're gonna find out it does, and then we'll be able to sit down and say, as we move forward, this is what our options are to include all of the hazard abatement, all of the necessary changes that we made, and this is what the cost is. And at that point, I mean, I don't have the money today, with FP5 and especially South Desert FP5 money, we will potentially have money to do that. I think we have options in front of us. And for the amount of time that it's taken, I wish I could change that, I can't. But to the extent that we actually do staff, we have we still have $1.2 million. And so, I know it doesn't seem like much, but there is a squad there that responds here when it's needed. There's a fire engine at 29 we didn't have access to before, and there's a squad there that responds to us or the medical issues that the community has today. That's funded through the $1.2 million in the MOU. And the board has continued to, even this last budget year, to continue to include that so that we can staff that unit.
So, sorry, I'm sorry, we're going to conclude the meeting.
10 seconds, paid call firefighter, she tried to get it going out here. Can we reactivate it?
So if you guys want to go, I can take that.
Thank you.
That's fine. Like I said, this does conclude the meeting. We appreciate you guys coming out. For those that still have additional questions, absolutely, the chief will stay and we'll answer any. Thank you.